5 days after I buried Marianne, her son fired me. I was still in my funeral suit when he slid the termination packet across the boardroom table like he was handing me a menu. He had no idea I owned 67% of the company. The room smelled like burnt coffee and fresh toner. That's what I remember. Not the view of downtown Toledo through the big windows, not the tight faces of the board, just that bitter, reheated smell and the warm, chemical breath of the copier in the corner. It always ran hot when someone printed a stack of contracts. Evan sat at the head of the table, in Marianne's leather chair. It still held the faintest impression of her. My stepson's hair was combed back with a YouTube tutorial neatness. His navy suit didn't quite fit his shoulders. His silver watch looked brand new. 33 years old and already playing king. He didn't look like a man who'd lost his mother. He looked like a man who'd been waiting for his turn. The others around the table were people who'd built this place. Mark, our CFO, with a ledger in his head and a rosary in his glove box. Rita from operations, tough as road salt. Dennis, the board chair, who always smelled of aftershave and wintergreen mints. They watched me with the strained sympathy of a funeral line, a silent apology in their eyes. No one had expected this. Evan cleared his throat. The HVAC seemed to hush. First, he said, clicking a little remote, I want to thank everyone for being here. I know it's been a difficult week. His voice had the practiced calm of a corporate training video. My tie, Marianne's favorite, the one she said warmed my eyes, felt like a noose. I'd tied it that morning by muscle memory and grief, thinking of the last time I kissed her forehead. Cold, too cold. As you know, Evan continued, the board has asked me to step in as interim CEO. Mark shifted. Dennis gave a stiff nod. Outside, a Lake Erie wind rattled the window seams, indifferent to titles or funerals. Evan looked down, then up at me. His eyes didn't soften. Frank, he said, as if naming a stranger, I'm going to keep this simple. A man who says he'll keep it simple is about to do something cruel. He slid the packet toward me. Fresh staples, our gleaming logo at the top. Separation agreement. Mark inhaled sharply. Rita's jaw tightened. Dennis blinked fast. I stared at the packet like it was a snake. Effective immediately, Evan said, we're terminating your employment. The words landed with a dull thud, like a box dropped on concrete. A pressure built in my ears, my body rejecting the sound. You're firing me. Yes, we're moving in a new direction. A new direction? I tasted the phrase. Empty. A corporate blanket thrown over a mess. Evan folded his hands. You've done what you can, but the company needs modern leadership. Mark's face flushed. Evan lifted a hand without looking. Let me finish. Dennis cleared his throat. This seems sudden. Sudden. Dennis? My mother passed away. That's sudden. There it was. The first mention of her. Not as Marianne. Not as mom. As a leverage point. He glanced back at me. Frank, I'm sure this is emotional, but we have to consider optics. Optics. Yes, investors expect a certain structure. Frankly, keeping the grieving husband in a high-level role creates uncertainty. Something hot began climbing my chest. Grief turning into betrayal. Rita's voice was low. Frank's not uncertainty. Frank's the reason half our suppliers still answer the phone. Evan gave her a polite, empty look. Loyalty isn't a strategy. That sentence told me everything. Marianne used to say the company ran on good parts and good people. Evan saw people as numbers on a spreadsheet. I slid the packet closer. The paper was crisp. Evan watched like a cat. This isn't personal, he said. I let out a short breath. My wife dies on Thursday. I bury her on Saturday. You fire me on Tuesday. And you want me to believe it's not personal? His eyes flickered for half a second. My mother built this company. She would want what's best for it. My mother. He said it like she was a trophy he'd inherited. She would want what's best for her people, I said. Evan shrugged. People will adjust. I opened the packet. Cold, neat language drafted by someone who'd never sat across from a man in a funeral suit. Then, on page 6, a sloppy, buried clause. A line about me acknowledging I held no voting interest. It was a mistake big enough to swallow a man whole. Evan tapped his pen. Signed today. Your severance is clean. If not, we'll have to go another route. Litigation. Security. We can make this unpleasant. Rita's head snapped up. Are you threatening him? I'm explaining options. My wife's voice returned, steady from years ago. Quiet men finish things. Frank. My hands trembled under the table. I hated him seeing me like this, raw and broken. But he didn't understand the company. And he didn't understand me. I picked up the pen. Mark's eyes widened. Frank. I held up a hand. It's okay. I signed. I initialed. When I reached the voting clause, I paused. Evan's pen stopped tapping. The room went dead still. Then I initialed it, too. I wasn't signing away anything real. That clause was a bluff. If Evan thought it protected him, it would make him careless. Careless men dig their own graves. I slid the packet back. He gathered it like he'd won something. Security will escort you out. I stood, my chair scraping softly. Grief adds years to your joints. I looked at the people who'd built this place with us. Rita's eyes were wet. Mark looked furious. Dennis, ashamed. I didn't make a speech. I just said, take care of each other. Evan snorted softly, as if that were sentiment. 2 security guards, young, avoiding my eyes, walked me to the elevator. One held the door like I was a stranger in my own building. In the elevator mirror, black suit, hollow eyes, a crooked tie, widower, fired man. Toledo winter slapped me awake in the parking lot. I scraped the frost from my F-150's windshield with the back of my hand. Mary Ann used to tease that I loved this truck more than my own bed. I drove home past the frozen Maumee River, past faded brick and a furnace repair billboard. The realization hit harder than the firing. Evan hadn't just fired me, he'd tried to erase me. At the house, I sat in the driveway, engine off, listening to the metal tick as it cooled. Inside smelled of lavender detergent and a church casserole. Life kept showing up in small, awkward gifts. I hung my funeral suit coat in the closet. In the pocket, my fingers found something small and cold. A brass paperclip, bent from years of use. Mary Ann's, wrapped around it, a tightly folded yellow sticky note. I unfolded it with shaking hands. Her handwriting, steady as ever. Blue folder, top drawer. If he ever tries it. My throat tightened. For the first time since the funeral, I felt something other than grief. A quiet, steady anger. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that waits. The next morning was gray and bitter. A cold that seeps into bones. I stood in the kitchen, coffee in hand, staring at the empty spot on the counter where Mary Ann's purse used to live. I sat in her recliner. It still smelled of her lotion, lavender, and something else I could never name. Comfort and discipline, mixed. The blue folder was exactly where she'd said, in her desk, in the spare room office. The lamp was still angled her way. Inside, a voting trust agreement, share transfer forms, notarized, dated, filed. 67%. She'd done it 7 years ago, after one of Evan's rare visits. I remembered her quiet that night, standing at the sink long after the plates were clean. He asked me what the company was worth. She'd said finally. That's not a crime. I'd replied. No, she'd said, drying her hands slowly, but the way he asked was. She hadn't done it out of spite. She'd done it out of fear, for the people who showed up every day and trusted the place would still be there tomorrow. Owning the majority didn't make me feel powerful. It made me feel responsible, and tired. I drove to Rosie's Diner, a place with fogged windows and coffee that sat too long on the burner. Rosie slammed a mug in front of me. I heard, she said, that boy's got no soul. I didn't argue. My phone buzzed. A text from Rita. He's talking layoffs. Big ones. Says Monday. My stomach dropped. I typed back. Don't say anything yet. I'm on it. I drove past the plant at shift change. The siren wailed. Men and women poured out. Collars up against the cold. Faces I'd known for decades. People who'd stayed when things were lean because they trusted us. Because they trusted her. I parked across the street and watched until the lot emptied. My hands shook. Not from the cold. From the pressure building in my chest. Evan could wreck all of this in weeks. I went to the cemetery in the afternoon. The ground was hard. I knelt by Mary Ann's stone and set the brass paperclip at its base. I didn't ask for this, I said aloud. I just wanted to finish what we started. The wind cut through my coat. I remembered her across our kitchen table. Her voice firm. If Evan ever tries to erase you, Don't let him erase our people. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. Frank Dalton. A familiar chuckle. Still answering your own phone. Good sign. Harold. Meet me at Lou's barbershop on Lasky. And, Frank? Yes. Bring the blue folder. I ended the call and stood. The grief was still there, heavy and raw, but underneath it, something had taken shape. Resolve. Monday was coming, and for the first time since the funeral, I wasn't afraid of it. The worn leather envelope lay between us on the metal table. Harold flipped pages slowly, his thick finger tracing notarized stamps, checking dates. He didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he leaned back in the folding chair, the vinyl sighing under his weight. Well, he said, letting out a long breath, I'll be damned. My throat was dry. That good or bad? That's airtight, he said, tapping the folder. Voting trust, share transfer, properly filed, 67%, clean as a church ledger. A knot in my chest loosened, just a fraction. He doesn't know. Harold's lips twitched. No, and that's the best part. He closed the folder and slid it back to me. Evan's running around thinking he inherited a throne. What he's actually sitting in is a folding chair with one leg missing. I almost smiled. Almost. But, Harold said, raising a finger like a teacher, this only works if you don't get impatient. I leaned forward, elbows on the cold metal. He's talking layoffs. Big ones. Monday. I know, Harold said, his voice dropping. 53 names. Long-timers. Tom Riley. Sharon from purchasing. The names were punches. My jaw clenched. And he's not stopping there, Harold continued, watching me. He's courting private equity. 2 groups. They don't see a company. They see a balance sheet. Benefits to cut. Supplier contracts to renegotiate. Pension obligations to shed. All the things Marianne protected, I said, my voice flat. Harold nodded. He's already filing paperwork. Governance changes. Non-voting share issuance. Legal gray area stuff designed to confuse a board and scare a bank. So I stop him, I said, the urge hot and immediate. Harold shook his head. Slow and final. Not yet. He'll gut the place by Monday. You stop him too soon, Harold cut in, his voice sharpening. And he knows you have leverage. Then he digs in. Emergency meetings. Whispers about mental fitness. Grieving widowers losing perspective. He paints you as the problem he's solving. I hated how right it sounded. The logic was a cold, heavy stone in my gut. So what do? Watch? You let him talk, Harold said, folding his hands. You let him pitch. You let him stand up in front of God and everyone and show them exactly who he is. A man who sees people as line items. That feels like letting him hurt people, I said, the words tight. Harold's eyes softened, but his voice didn't. Frank, I've known you 30 years. You're a fixer. You see a leak. You grab a wrench. But some leaks, you have to let run a little, so everyone sees where the water's coming from. Justice isn't just about being right. It's about being undeniable. I thought of Rita's wet eyes in the boardroom, of Tom Riley's grease-blackened hands, of Marianne at the sink, drying her hands with deliberate slowness. The way he asked was, "What if he rams it through before Monday?" I asked. He won't, Harold said with certainty. He wants the spotlight, the big meeting, the witnesses. He wants to feel like a king delivering a proclamation. Men like that, they need an audience. I rubbed my temples. A dull ache pulsed behind my eyes. He's already trying to freeze me out. Bank access, security codes. Harold actually smiled. A thin, grim thing. Good, that's sloppy, and sloppy works for us. How? Shows intent, he said, not just poor judgment, but panic. A clean, confident takeover doesn't bother with petty revocations. It's the act of a man who knows, deep down, his claim is weak. He stood up, the chair scraping. Here's what you do. You show up Monday. You sit in the back. You don't interrupt. You don't react. You let him lay out his entire vision. Let him hang himself with his own rope. And then? I asked, standing with him. Harold met my eyes, his gaze steady as bedrock. And then, Frank, you remind everyone in that room who actually holds the deed to the house. The blue folder was a silent passenger on the drive home. The sky was iron gray, the streetlights buzzing to life. At the house, I ate leftover casserole standing at the counter, tasting nothing. My phone buzzed. Mark. Frank. Whatever you're planning, be careful, he's moving fast. I typed back. My fingers cold. I know. Tell Rita to keep everyone steady, no panic. I ended up in the spare room, at Marianne's desk. The blue folder glowed in the lamplight. Quiet men finish things, I said to the empty room. The words were a vow. Friday. The rumors hardened into fact. Rita's call came at noon. Her voice a taut wire. They're real. Frank. The list. 53 names. I closed my eyes, leaning against the kitchen counter. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. She read them. Tom Riley, both maintenance guys from Bay 2. Sharon, 3 of the shipping crew. A roll call of loyalty, of decades. He's calling it Phase 1, she said, the corporate poison in the term making her spit it out. My left hand trembled on the counter. I pressed it down until the shaking stopped. I need you to do something for me, Rita said, her voice dropping. Anything. Keep people calm. No leaks. No walkouts. Tell them, she took a shaky breath. Tell them I'm not gone. Not really. There was a long pause, filled with the static of the line and 30 years of trust. I will, I said. That afternoon, Evan held court at a chain restaurant off the interstate. Rita texted, he's posturing. I went anyway. A weakness. I sat in back, hat low, water untouched. His voice carried. Can't run this place like a museum. Nostalgia doesn't pay invoices. A few nervous chuckles. The old guard had their time. Now it's about tough calls. My heart thudded in my throat. I saw Marianne on the floor, listening, really listening. Evan laughed. A sharp, dismissive sound. Frank never understood that. I was on my feet before I knew it. The room tilted. Rita caught my eye from across the crowd and gave one sharp, almost imperceptible shake of her head. No. Marianne's voice. A whisper in my memory. Quiet men finish things. I sat down. My knees were water. I left before he finished. The cold outside air a slap that brought me back to myself, trembling with shame at my own near miss. Saturday was a ghost day. Sunday morning. The text from Mark. Emergency pre-meeting tonight. Board chair outside council. He's trying to lock votes before Monday. The urge to act was a physical pull. I called Harold. He's pushing it, I said. I know, he replied, infuriatingly calm, and that's the final confirmation. He could lock it down tonight. He needs the spectacle. Frank. Monday isn't a meeting to him, it's a coronation. Stealing it in a back room doesn't feed his vanity. Harold's voice was quiet, assured. If you step in now, you're the disruptive ghost. Monday, you're the rightful owner. Let him have the rope. I hated it. I hated every second. I feel like I'm betraying them by waiting. You're protecting them by winning, Harold said, and the line went dead. Sunday night, I laid out my suit, the dark gray one Marianne bought me. I slipped the brass paperclip into the inner pocket, a talisman against the storm. Another buzz. Unknown number. Security will be present at tomorrow's meeting. A slow smile touched my lips for the first time in a week. Good, I murmured to the silent bedroom. Let them watch. I sat in the dark, listening to the house settle around me. The old floors creaked their familiar song. Monday was just hours away, and Evan, in his desperate rush to claim everything, had finally run out of room.